Hey besties, Monica Ferguson here and welcome to World Domination. This is a safe space for absolute legends who are bold enough and brave enough to go within, to recreate their belief system, to aim high, to chase their wildest dreams and become everything that they are destined to be. This is a space for people who are serious about growth, about healing. We talk about all things mind, body, spirit, and we have the courage to go further than most people even dare to dream. Welcome, let's get into it. Hey besties, Mon here and welcome back to part 2 of our series with Jan Haldane. This episode is healing from the narcissist, healing from the toxic relationship, the abuse. And this episode has so many tools and things in here to help you. So get your paper, get your pen, take notes, and make sure that you start to apply these things immediately. Because ultimately, once we've acknowledged what we've been through, we want to start picking ourselves back up, right? Taking our power back. We don't need to suffer anymore. We actually deserve to feel good and to feel worthy and to feel strong and to move forward, right? So this episode is going to help you guys so much. Please let me know your aha moments and let's get into it. Jan, welcome back for part 2.
Thanks so much, Monica. It's great to be back.
So last episode, I asked you to solve everyone's problems in 25 minutes. Which we failed at because there was too much to talk about. So exactly. I'm giving you an additional 25 minutes.
Well, I can't promise I'm going to solve all the problems in another 25, but we'll have a good crack at it, eh?
Yeah. No, I loved our last episode. And like we said, it's just so important to kind of cover all of the different things, right? The different aspects. Because I re-listened to our episode this morning and, something that really jumped out at me was how you spoke about the physical side of it. And how you argued with a counselor that you were not being abused because he wasn't hitting you. And yes, I think that's really important. And I'm glad that we took the time to discuss all of the aspects.
Yeah. Funny enough, I was talking to a client about that this morning. Same thing. So yeah, it is quite a good thing to discuss because it is very easy to think that maybe physical violence is the only form of abuse. It certainly was back in the old days, but we're a lot more educated now, so we're a lot more onto it. But I think with anything, with people coming out of these toxic or narcissistic relationships, the first thing really is raising the awareness about the dynamics of the toxic relationships, about the fact that they're not alone, that this is happening all over the world every single day. It doesn't matter what your gender is. It doesn't matter what your financial status is. It happens. It's huge, absolutely huge. And so that's the crucial first step, I think, of people beginning their healing journey, which I know is what we're talking about today, is actually making them aware, or making sure that they're aware in their conscious mind about as I said, like the dynamics of toxic relationships, because it's so easy to be overburdened by toxic shame, feeling so ashamed for having let yourself be in one of those relationships that you don't talk about it, you internalize it, and that does no good. As we know, internalizing things, basically suppressing is not a good thing to do. So that's the first step, is raising the awareness, education, or psychoeducation, as I call it, if it's coming from someone who's, trained in the sort of stuff that we do. But otherwise, hey, there's so much stuff out there on the internet now that you can educate yourself to start with.
Yeah. I love that you've spoken into shame already, because it is such a huge thing, isn't it? Like when you've been in a situation like this and you're absolutely broken, like your self-esteem is destroyed, you have no confidence, you probably believe that you deserve it, that's why it's happening to you. It is such a jump to go from that, especially if you've been stripped of finances, friends, you've been isolated from other people, to then turn around and say to someone, I really need help. Like, the shame thing is huge. Oh my God, it's taken me years to work through this stuff.
It is absolutely huge. Because, and I think I touched on it last week, but I really want to touch on it quite firmly this week. There's a lot of victim blaming going on at the moment. And
Yes.
so, this exacerbates people who are carrying the toxic shame, actually talking to anyone about it. And it's so big, obviously, that, what's it called? The charity that works with victim support has actually got ads on Facebook about not victim blaming and wanting people to sign a petition about it. And this is what I see happen so often, is that someone has come out of a toxic relationship or trying to get out. They don't know who to talk to, who's not going to say, well, it serves you right. You were stupid enough to get into that relationship. You made your bed, now you can lie in it. All the old toxic phrases, basically, that they are. And so, that's another thing why it's important when people want to talk about it, to talk to someone who actually understands and doesn't judge. And that can be quite hard, because often families judge, particularly, if you've been with a narcissist and they've only seen the good side of him or her or them, not the other side that you see behind closed doors. Because again, there's two different things. There's the public persona and there's what happens when they get home. And, it's Jekyll and Hyde. And Hyde's not very nice at all.
Yeah. So, okay, random question. But this is so relevant to pop culture today. Like, this is unfolding as we speak. Have you seen this new movie that's just come out called It Ends With Us? Or have you heard about it?
Probably not. I'm not that much into movies, but yeah. So what's it about?
So well, this is the really interesting thing, right? So it has big names in it. Blake Lively is the lead actress in it. And she, from what I observe anyway online, people are very, very unhappy because it was based on a book that was about domestic violence, right? So the director and the lead actor, Justin Baldoni is his name, he is using this opportunity to really speak about the victims, to actually give people an option to be heard, right? Giving them a platform to be heard. She has spoken about it like she's really glossed over it. She's turned it into some sort of rom-com thing. And she's getting destroyed online. And it's really interesting just to observe this, because like Justin Baldoni is literally on the red carpet, he was asked, like, how are you celebrating your night? How are you feeling on your night? And he said, this isn't my night. This is the night for everyone who's a survivor, everyone who's been through this. And it's such a stark contrast. And I mean, the internet, wow, like the internet takes no prisoners, right? But it's just so interesting to see that, because even you've got a movie that was literally about domestic violence, based on a book about domestic violence, and you've got the lead actress literally saying to people, wear your florals, bring your girlfriends, watch this movie. These are direct quotes.
Okay, right.
Yeah. And so there was another interviewer that said to her, okay, so, this is going to really speak to a lot of people, and people are going to want to share their stories with you. How do you recommend they do that? And she was like, oh, you mean like give them my phone number or da-da-da-da? And the face of the co-star, like everyone's just horrified. And it's like you've taken this thing that you had such a responsibility and such an opportunity, right, to empower people. And like, what is wrong with you? Honestly, it drives me crazy. But the internet, like I say, is not happy about it. And she is just like getting destroyed online. And it's such a shame. It's such a shame. But then like Justin Baldoni, the respect that the world has for this man who has literally taken himself out of the spotlight and given this, position for survivors. It's like, but I was just thinking about that listening to you, like the shaming thing. It's like you've literally, this is literally what it's about, and you haven't even given these people an opportunity to speak. And that's what happens, isn't it? Like
it is, and kudos to Justin Baldoni. This is what needs to happen more in the world, and not have it trivialized or changed, as it sounds like Blake Lively is doing. I haven't read anything she said, so I can't speak too much about that. But the message is there. It's clearly close to his heart. And you know, it's a shame, but I guess that is a really good example, Monica, of sort of what goes on. People often can't handle it. Like, say you are, let's just say you've come out of a difficult relationship, and it might not even be physical violence. They can't handle it. They can't handle listening to it. So then they start trivializing or deflecting or all sorts of things, or blaming. And it only makes the survivor of the narcissistic relationship feel worse, feel that nobody's going to understand, that they may as well just shut up, because that's what they've been told for years, undoubtedly, by the narcissist. And possibly they had narcissistic or difficult parents in some way. And so this may be a lifetime thing. And so it's just perpetuating the same thing. So that's why you really do have to be careful who you speak to, who can actually understand.
Yeah. Oh, I just remembered the point to my story about that movie. So in an interview, right, Justin Baldoni was asked, like that one of the many questions, like people always say, why did you stay? Right? Why do women stay in these situations? That shame-based victim blaming thing that you're speaking into. And he said, that's the wrong question. Ask, why do men abuse? And I was like,
yes.
Drop the mic.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, I know.
Hallelujah.
That's the reason that I told you that story. But it's like, that is the shift, isn't it? Like, why, just because we can see maybe from the outside that something's really bad, it's so easy for us to go, well, you shouldn't have stayed there, or you shouldn't have done that, or obviously that person was bad. But it's like, what kind of state does that person have to be in to believe that that's what they're worthy of? Like, I mean, honestly.
It's the old, thing again, particularly with the patriarchy. The problem would be with the woman, and the guy gets a free hall pass, but actually, why is the guy or anyone of any gender abusing? It's they have got the problem. They are the problem. They are the perpetrator.
Yeah.
The other person is probably tolerated too much.
Yeah.
But the whole question of, why don't they go? That is such a multifaceted question.
Yeah.
It's so, there's so many things in that.
I guess it's up there with that. Well, what were you wearing? That kind of question, isn't it?
Oh, it is. It's up there with the whole, with almost that whole thing. Oh, well, someone got raped. Oh, yes. What was she wearing?
Yeah.
Again, it's not that women shouldn't wear a pair of shorts down the street. It's that, males shouldn't rape.
Yeah.
So it is kind of the same sort of thing. So so that's what I really want to get across to people. Be very careful who you talk to about this stuff, because they just may not understand, and then they'll start some of these minimizing behaviors, and it's not going to make the survivor feel any better. It often makes them feel worse.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get into the actual process of coming out of a situation like this. How do we heal? How do we start to raise our confidence again, our self-worth, and take our power back?
Well, starting with, of course, awareness, as I said. First of all, you've got to understand that you were in a toxic relationship, because you would have been blamed for years for everything. Like any little thing that went wrong, it was your fault, even though it was the most stupid, doesn't even make sense. So it's getting your head around, your conscious mind around, okay, so I was in a relationship, and these are the dynamics of toxic relationships. And so you come to an understanding. But then you get some people who, the next step is acknowledgement, but you get some people who say, oh, well, my husband wasn't a narcissist. Okay, no, they're not diagnosed as a narcissist, no, but they were high in narcissistic traits or in toxic traits. I didn't marry a narcissist. And so until you can get into that acknowledgement phase, that you can acknowledge that your person's behavior, be that partner, this could be a work situation, all sorts of things, is high in toxic traits. That's who they are. That is who they are. They may not have started out like that. You might have seen, the lovely side of them because they were still masking. And I think we talked a bit about masking last week. So they're still wearing that mask of Mr. or Ms., nice guy, whatever. But in fact, that's not who they are. They are Mr. Hyde or Ms. Hyde. And you've actually got to get to that stage where you can acknowledge that, yes, that person has toxic behaviors and that it's not your fault because you would have been told it's your fault, and it's not your responsibility because you would have been made to feel that everything about them is your responsibility. It's not. So that's the next step, is the acknowledgement. And sometimes those two steps, the awareness and the acknowledgement, take a little while to get through. Now, personally, I use a lot of visualizations for those. I've got a phone app, actually, that I use for people that are going through the stages. And it's got about 6 or 7, maybe 8 recordings on that. And it just kind of eases them through each stage. So the next stage after that is acceptance. So accepting, yes, you were in an abusive relationship. That person was abusing you. So you were a victim of that abuse, but you don't need to stay a victim. You're not a victim now because you got out. So you're not a victim, you're actually a survivor. So it's like reframe, change the text. You're not a victim, you're a survivor. So, okay, so how do we move forward? So it's almost like going down into kind of a bit of a valley and then coming up the other side and out of that whole thing. And so there's other useful things like journaling. I have like workbooks and journals and things like that I use with people. Journaling is one thing. Writing a letter to your ex, because sometimes you are so angry because you could never tell them what you wanted to tell them because you were scared. You were scared that they might really lose their rag and hit you or whatever. There's all sorts of negative consequences that you might have been scared of. So there's lots of different things you can do. But the main thing really is coming to that acceptance and then thinking, okay, so now I'm ready to heal. Now, I understand what went on. I understand it wasn't my fault, because they have to take personal responsibility for their own behavior. So their behavior wasn't my fault, but I put up with it. So why did I do that? And then we start looking at, often these days, I really start with the childhood of the person who was in the relationship. What did they tolerate as a child? What did they not tolerate as a child? What did they have to do to survive as a child in that family? Yeah. Not saying that their parents were necessarily abusers. Well, certainly, I'm not a young woman, as we know. But back in the day, a lot of the behaviours that were considered to be normal are now considered to be abusive. So there's a lot of parents who thought they weren't being abusive because they put a roof over your head, they clothed you, they fed you. But they didn't meet the developmental needs of the child. And they were probably clueless because this is an intergenerational thing. So, until we get the person who's the whistleblower and stops it all, this goes on and on through the generations. So I tend to go back now. I'm just, as we speak, writing a workshop to present in Melbourne in November. And, I'm going right back to the child that has to adapt and becomes the adaptive child. So they feel, this is in a nutshell, right? They feel that they're not accepted, so they're not good enough as they are, so they start to change themselves to survive. And that's fine in a way, because that's how they have to get through childhood, because they're kids, they don't have any power. Well, they might have more now, but they didn't used to. But if they carry that forward into adulthood, then it's going to actually not be a good thing in their relationships. It's really going to sabotage their relationships. So, if you had a family where you had to be the silent child, be seen and not heard, or anything along those lines, then you may carry on doing that as an adult. And so you might not speak out when someone starts abusing you. You may not even know, like I did, as I said to you, when I was a younger woman and that counsellor said I was being bullied. I was like, well, he's not hitting me, so how can I be? And that's often a thing too. People don't know. They just don't know. That's why raising awareness is step number one. Yeah. So I do a lot of inner child work now, more than I used to.
Yeah.
It's definitely a component. You need to, there's plenty of free resources you can get online, on these programs that like Insight Timer, or might be Calm, or something like that. I've got stuff on Insight Timer where you can listen to meditation / visualization / hypno stuff on there. So that's a big one, is listening to visualizations and things like that, because you've got to move yourself out of the groove that you're in. So the next step really is taking action. Taking action is to heal your past, because a lot of these relationships are actually living in the past. People are behaving as they did in the past as children. Now, I know this for some people probably sounds really far-fetched, but the reality is that you can be an adult and you can, you could be 6'3", you go to the gym, so you're a great big strapping person, you've got the cars, you've got the houses, you've got the boats, but inside you is a little child. And that little child is running the show when you get into a relationship. It may be fine and have a great job, but when you get into a relationship, that's when you get triggered. And that's when all these old behaviors from your childhood come out, and that little child then runs the show. So that's what's so important to do in a child work. It's a big, big topic, so I don't want to spend the whole time talking about that, but so you need to heal yourself from the past, and very, very important to start thinking about your future. What is it you want to be doing? Create a bucket list. Who is your future self? And I use, again, a lot of visualization or hypnosis or meditation. I just interchange all of that stuff, put it all together. Who is your future self? Who do you want to be? It's a positive step to actually be thinking about the future. See a coach or a counselor or a hypnotherapist, or someone who specializes in this area, who when you talk to them, they're not going to feel terribly uncomfortable and try and trivialize what you're saying or not want to listen. You need to tell your story. Now, if you get to someone and they don't want to hear your story because, hey, they've got, I don't know, some great protocol that they can use, no, you need to get it off your chest. That's one of the things. And Dr. Gabor Mate, often says to people, I've done a couple of his courses, who could they speak to when they were a child? And it's the same thing now. Who can you speak to? Who is going to listen and actually be trustworthy in listening? So the bottom line is what I say is use meditation, visualization, inner child work, and mindfulness. Mindfulness is a really good one, because that's all we've got is the present. So we can't be living in the past, ruminating about, you know, our childhood or our past relationships. The future isn't here yet, so we've only got the present. So grounding yourself into the present, you know, raising your vibration, to put a bit of spiritual aspect into it, raising your vibration, grounding yourself into the present, and being proud to be who you are. No more of listening to, oh, you're not good enough, you know, no one else would ever want you. On and on it goes. And then the effects of this relational trauma and toxic shame that come from these narcissistic and other toxic relationships. So I'm worthless, I'll never be enough. It was all my fault. I think I'm going crazy. I'll be alone for the rest of my life. People can see how flawed I am. It's not safe to be in a relationship. People believe I'm bad. You know, all this whole thing. I'm sure you've heard it before as well. But that's like the legacy of people coming out of toxic relationships. And I think, you know, we've all probably felt some of that at some time, when we can't really work out why someone has behaved the way they have. So that, you know, I'm putting it in a nutshell, basically, for this show. Yeah,
I love that. There are two things in there that jumped out so strongly to me, because they were the two things that made the biggest difference for me. And it sounds so basic, doesn't it? But talking about like mindfulness and actually being present, like it sounds like it's so simple, but there's a reason most people can't sit still, right? There's a reason most people are always distracted and busy and on their phone. It's because when we're present, we have to be present with all of it. And if it hasn't been safe to do that in the past, or we have these deep feelings of shame and unworthiness, it's going to hurt a lot. It's not a pleasant experience in the beginning to sit with all of it and be like, oh my God. And then all the regrets and, oh my God, I'm at this age and I can't believe this happened and and I'm a loser and I'm a failure and all that crap. But like, I just love this space, because when we have the courage to sit with it, then like you said at the start, we become aware. Here's a thought. That's all it is. It's just a thought. It's not real. But when we're aware of it, then we have the power to change it, right? And to reframe it and to challenge it. Like, is that actually true? That's one of my favorite questions.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, no, it's not. Okay, so now I have a choice to keep, you know, reiterating that, or to actually swap it for something else. Is that true? Or was I just told that? Was it actually about me? So why am I continuing to hurt myself by believing these things? Like, yeah. But so much courage required, right? So much courage. It'd be way easier to be an alcoholic, quite frankly.
Might be a bit expensive these days, but no. And I mean, you know, it's mindfulness now is something that I use a lot more than I used to use, and for exactly those reasons you're saying, because you need to sit and be present with the uncomfortable emotions, and often also to be able to feel them in your body, because we know that it's eventually going to end up in your body. So even to sit there doing it like a body scan, or lie there, whatever, doing a body scan and just feeling, you know, where your tense is, the pain. What's that part of your body trying to tell you?
Yeah.
What's that about? And I didn't work with that so much before, but I work with that quite really all the time now. That's one of the first things is finding what's going on in someone's body. You know.
Yeah, I love that. And it builds trust, right? Because then we're more in tune with how we feel. So next time we meet someone, we naturally will feel, oh, that feels off. That doesn't feel good to me. Instead of getting into our head and being like, oh no, I'm just this or I'm just that. No, you'll actually feel it, and you're listening to your body, which is a genius.
Yeah, the body and mind is not separated. And I mean, we've got enough studies to show that. these days. A lot of people might say, oh, that's rubbish, but no, it's not rubbish. It's been proven to not be rubbish. So, feel the feelings. And feel the feelings is not just emotionally, it can also be physically. Why are you tight at the back of the neck? Why are you, there's something. What is it? What's your body telling you? And that sort of thing, like doing a body scan, people can do it themselves, or you can record it for them and they can listen to it. And another thing that I wanted to mention that I've also used a lot more now in this particular type of work is self-compassion.
Yeah.
We so need self-compassion. We are so hard on ourselves with our inner critic or inner saboteur or whatever it is we want to call them. If we treated our best friend the way we treat ourselves, or any friend probably, we wouldn't have many friends, but we're so hard on ourselves.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so a lot of self-compassion, and again, that can be integrated, with mindfulness, with self-compassion, with metta, having compassion for other people as well. So there's a lot of things we can bring in there, and even if people don't like one thing, there's other things that do work for them.
And that is a wrap. Thank you for showing up for yourself, for being here, and please let me know your aha moments. I want to hear all about them. For extra support, make sure you're following me on TikTok and Instagram at @the_Monica_Ferguson. Check out the School of Greatness for self-study courses, and of course, if you want one-on-one mentoring, just DM me and I would love to have a chat with you. Go and slay the day. Thank you for being you. See you soon.